The U.S. military has targeted and killed Iranian General Qassem Soleimani. Was it an act of genius by President Trump, or will it cause World War III? I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance. Welcome to tonight's critical broadcast, friend. We are going to look at the killing of General Soleimani, but more importantly, we're going to look at the philosophy, the theology that undergirds just war, and we're going to discuss whether or not this was a just act, what reprisals may come to United States personnel, interests, allies around the world, and what we will then do next. We'll talk about the rules of just war, preemptive war, preventive war, assassination, all of it on this special broadcast. And I also want you to know, before I play the president's 4.5-minute explanation of what he did, this is my wheelhouse. I'm not some talking head on television that doesn't know what he's talking about. I have a master's degree from a military school in diplomacy and international terrorism. This is my field of graduate studies. So hopefully I'll be able to bring some of those studies to you in a way that is beneficial for your thinking and helps provoke some thought. But first, let's hear from President Trump. Most of us did not get the opportunity to see this because, in my opinion, it was such a clear explanation of what was done and why that the left-wing media simply couldn't air it. They'll air people whining, complaining, deriding the president, but they're not going to give airtime to the president to explain what happened. I am. It's my duty as a broadcaster. And so here is President Trump explaining what we did and why we did it and what we are prepared to do in the future.
Well, thank you very much and good afternoon. As president, my highest and most solemn duty is the defense of our nation and its citizens. Last night, at my direction, the United States military successfully executed a flawless precision strike that killed the #1 terrorist anywhere in the world, Qassem Soleimani. Soleimani was plotting imminent and sinister attacks on American diplomats and military personnel, but we caught him in the act and terminated him. Under my leadership, America's policy is unambiguous to terrorists who harm or intend to harm any American. We will find you. We will eliminate you. We will always protect our diplomats, service members, all Americans, and our allies. For years, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and its ruthless Quds Force under Soleimani's leadership has targeted, injured, and murdered hundreds of American civilians and servicemen. The recent attacks on U.S. targets in Iraq, including rocket strikes that killed an American and injured 4 American servicemen very badly, as well as a violent assault on our embassy in Baghdad, were carried out at the direction of Soleimani. Soleimani made the death of innocent people his sick passion, contributing to terrorist plots as far away as New Delhi and London. Today we remember and honor the victims of Soleimani's many atrocities, and we take comfort in knowing that his reign of terror is over. Soleimani has been perpetrating acts of terror to destabilize the Middle East for the last 20 years. What the United States did yesterday should have been done long ago. A lot of lives would have been saved. Just recently, Soleimani led the brutal repression of protesters in Iran, where more than 1,000 innocent civilians were tortured and killed by their own government. We took action last night to stop a war. We did not take action to start a war. I have deep respect for the Iranian people. They are a remarkable people with an incredible heritage and unlimited potential. We do not seek regime change. However, the Iranian regime's aggression in the region, including the use of proxy fighters to destabilize its neighbors, must end, and it must end now. The future belongs to the people of Iran, those who seek peaceful coexistence and cooperation, not the terrorist warlords who plunder their nation to finance bloodshed abroad. The United States has the best military by far anywhere in the world. We have the best intelligence in the world. If Americans anywhere are threatened, we have all of those targets already fully identified, and I am ready and prepared to take whatever action is necessary. And that in particular refers to Iran. Under my leadership, we have destroyed the ISIS territorial caliphate. And recently, American Special Operations Forces killed the terrorist leader known as al-Baghdadi. The world is a safer place without these monsters. America will always pursue the interests of good people, great souls, while seeking peace, harmony, and friendship with all of the nations of the world. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our great military, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, when we come back, we're going to look at preventive war. We're going to look at a preemptive strike. We're going to deal with assassinations and much more. Please don't go away. Introducing Roxy Guitar. If you're a guitar or bass player, whether you play acoustic or electric, check out Roxy Guitar. I've been playing for over 40 years and seen guitar stores all over America. I've never seen a store like Roxy Guitar. Roxy Guitar has over 700 guitars in stock, over 1,500 pedals, over 200 amps. For the beginner or price-conscious buyer, there's Michael Kelly guitars. For the serious player or professional, Roxy Guitar has the finest selection of guitar lines I've ever seen. You know I love Warrior guitars. Roxy Guitar has over 100 Warriors in stock. They have Heritage, G&L, Gretsch, John Sears, BC Rich, Duesenberg, Dean, legendary guitars at great prices, including pre-owned Gibsons, Fenders, and more. Let them know you heard about Roxy Guitar from Randall Terry and receive 10% or more off your purchase on select items. Go to roxyguitar.com. Welcome back. Iran is designated by the U.S. State Department as a state sponsor of terrorism. There are only 4 nations on that list: Iran, North Korea, Syria, and Sudan. Now, what designates a state sponsor of terrorism, pretty much it's inherent in the word, is that the mechanisms of government, the banks, the personnel of government fund, deploy money, spread the wealth to terrorist organizations who then commit these atrocious deeds. So, very quickly, Hezbollah is a terrorist organization, but it is funded predominantly by the Iranian government. So, we have known for decades that Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism, and yet, under President Obama's administration, they released $150 billion, with a B, $150 billion of Iranian assets that had been held since the hostages were taken by the Iranians in 1979. And then Obama delivered $1.8 billion in cold, hard cash, actual currency on pallets. So the Obama administration released banked money and cash to the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. There is no question that some of that money, since that time, has gotten into the hands of terrorists who have killed either Americans, American servicemen, or members of nations that are our allies. So we'll just leave that hideous black mark on the Obama administration for a minute and return to Iran. In addition to Iran being a state sponsor of terrorism, they are a nation who deploys terrorists on its own payroll. The United States has long considered General Qassem Soleimani as a terrorist. He personally oversaw the Quds. By the way, Quds is the Arabic name for Jerusalem. They don't call Jerusalem, they call it Al-Quds. And their third most holy site in Islam is in Israel. The Dome of the, actually it's Al-Aqsa, which is right near the Dome of the Rock. It's up on the Temple Mount. So we knew that this man was a terrorist. We had designated him as a terrorist before President Trump became president. We knew that he was responsible for the death of hundreds of Americans, American servicemen. We knew it, and yet no action was taken. Now, this man was an Iranian. He was a Shiite. He has a theological hostility towards Sunni Muslims. The government has said that he was involved at a distance on the recent attack on our embassy in Iraq. He went to Baghdad. He's on the tarmac there. What was he doing in Baghdad? Well, our government said that he was getting ready to unleash plans, attacks on U.S. personnel, diplomats, and perhaps some of our allies. We may never fully see what was captured by our intelligence forces, by our satellites, by our spying devices. But let's use an illustration that all of us can understand. If you see somebody reaching for their gun, and then you move to defend yourself, just because they're reaching for it, and you punch them in the face or you hit them in the side of the head with a 2x4, whatever, you draw your gun first. You see that they're going for their gun, and you draw your gun first. Is that just? In military terms, Israel in the Six-Day War struck Egypt first. Philosophers, theologians decided to name what, or to stick with the name of what Israel did as a preventive strike. The rules of just war have always maintained that you can defend yourself, both as an individual and as a nation, as a body politic. So had Egypt struck Israel first, no one would have denied, well, maybe Muslims would have denied, but most nations would not have denied Israel's right to self-defense. But while the Egyptian army was massing on the border, clearly getting ready to invade Israel, all right, just think reaching for the gun, Israel said, no, we're not going to let it happen. And they decimated the Egyptian army and came to a speedy victory in the Six-Day War. Fast forward to when Menachem Begin was premier or prime minister of Israel. And in 1980, he ordered the bombing of the nuclear reactor in Iraq. Iraq had committed to destroy Israel. Iraq was developing nuclear weapons. And so 4 fighter bombers were sent at 100, 150 feet above the ground and just rocketed into Iraq, barely had enough fuel. They dropped their bombs on the facility and they came home. That was called a preventative strike. Not a preemptive, but a preventive strike or preventive war. We can see far enough down this path to know that if you get that nuclear weapon, you're going to use it to destroy us. We're not letting you get the weapon. Israel took a little bit more heat for that one, but they didn't care. They knew the threat, and the threat was real. Now apply those principles of the man reaching for the gun, and let's just add to the fact that the man reaching for the gun has already killed hundreds of your friends. Do you have a right to kill him before he gets the gun out? We knew that this man was plotting attacks on us, and so we took him out. Now, there are those saying, wait a minute, he was a member of the Iranian government. This was an assassination. We'll talk about that when we come back. Don't go away.
I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. Its teachings are good and peaceful. And those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah.
We have reaffirmed again and again that the United States is not and never will be at war with Islam. Islam teaches peace.
Islam is a religion of peace. They are not Muslims, they are monsters.
We've been told that Muslim terrorists have hijacked the peaceful religion of Islam. But Islamic art and literature tell a very different story. To know the truth, we only have to study the narrative of the founder of Islam, Muhammad, in his own words. You might have seen in movies, it's true that you don't salute commanding officers in a field of battle because the commanding officers don't want to be ID'd. There's very little that separates them visually. Because why? Because behind the enemy lines, there are people waiting to assassinate the leaders. They know to take out the leaders. It's a part of the rules of war. Cut off the snake's head. Strike the shepherd, the sheep will be scattered. Cut off the head of the snake, and the snake will not be able to find its way around and kill you. So we took out what most people would agree was the number one terrorist in the world. In many ways, he was far worse than Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He just was. So it's almost obscene to hear the things that the United States media are talking about. Listen to this montage of clips.
He was a war hero, the commander of Iran's feared Quds force.
Qassem Soleimani was no ordinary general. The U.S. officially classified him as a terrorist, but in Iran, he was a national hero.
He's regarded as personally incredibly brave. The troops love him.
I was trying to think of somebody, and I was thinking of de Gaulle.
A revered figure in Iran and some other places in the Middle East.
Smart, charismatic, ruthless, strategic, and bold. His power made Iranians proud.
But even many of Soleimani's enemies admitted he was a military genius.
Qassem Soleimani was an evil genius.
Soleimani was in charge of spreading Iranian influence around the world, and he was extremely good at it.
He is think of the French Foreign Legion, if you will.
By killing Qassem Soleimani, the U.S. has stripped Iran of an inspirational military leader.
The crowds are massive and emotional. There are many tears here.
Thousands of mourners on the streets in Iran. Symbolic caskets aloft, weeping and chanting, "I am Soleimani."
The supreme leader of Iran weeping and praying over a coffin draped in the Iraqi flag.
It's difficult to convey how revered he is.
There was talk in Iran Soleimani might be a future president, or perhaps even a supreme leader.
This is obscene. Revered. By the way, 50 people this morning earlier were killed at his funerals, being stampeded. So these, we don't know how many of the million people that are in the streets in Tehran, we don't know how many of them were ordered to be there. It's not a free country. We don't know how many of them are there because they're terrified that if they don't go, they will be viewed as a sympathizer of the United States government. Do you understand that? In the past month, in the past 2 months, the Iranian government has arrested, tortured, killed people for wanting more freedom in Iran. Now, President Trump, as you saw, praised the Iranian people. If someone dared to stay home, they could be accused of welcoming the praise of President Trump, of agreeing with President Trump. This man was a godless, demonic murderer, of murdering. He was of the highest level of evil that the human mind can imagine. And we took him out. He deserved to die a long time ago. Now, here's the issue. They're saying, it might start World War III. What a joke. We heard that exact line back with Gulf War. We heard it with Gulf II. To have a world war, you have to have combatants that have the capacity to spread a true war around the world. Iran does not have that. Okay? They just don't. We have said that we do not want regime change. What that phrase means is a new government. We're not trying to topple the government and install a new one. We did that with Saddam Hussein. We were after regime change. We did it with Germany after we wanted regime change, and we got it. In Japan, regime change, new government, new laws. We said we're not after regime change in Iran. But make no mistake, we have the technology to kill every leader in Iran in a matter of minutes. We know exactly where they are. We know what ordnance to send. So when people talk about World War III, listen, I promise you, President Trump has no desire to put boots on the ground in Iran. He doesn't need to. We have the military might and the technology to kill as many of the enemy as we think we need to push back against attacks. So it's not going to be World War III. Could we see this price of oil spike? Absolutely, yes. We're going to. Could we see more acts of terror against the U.S. and her allies from Iran or Iranian-sponsored terrorists? Absolutely. It's likely that that is going to happen. But President Trump has made clear, we know where the targets are that you most value, and we can take them out. Every last one of them. This was not an assassination, friend, any more than looking for a general on a field of battle was. Oh, but wait, we're not in a declared war. We'll talk about that when we come back. What Would Mohammed Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained is the best movie series documentary ever produced on the life of Muhammad and Islam. How do I know? Because it's what critics are saying. John Moore, radio host and author, said, I learned more from What Would Mohammed Do about Islam and Islamic terrorism than I've learned from everything I ever read and watched in my entire life. Best-selling author Dr. Bill Warner said, What Would Mohammed Do is the best movie series, TV production on the life of Muhammad and Islamic terrorism that has ever been produced. Friends, this is what the experts are saying. No one has ever done what we've done. I encourage you to get 1, 2, 4 copies. Call 304-289-3700. That's 304-289-3700, or order it at the address or the website that you see on the screen. Oh, but we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with them because they have declared war on us. It is a part of the very fiber of their Islamic religion. Death to America. Death to infidels. Death to Israel. A commitment to wipe Israel off the face of the map. Of course we're at war with them. We are not in a formally declared war from our side. But they have again and again, by virtue of their acts and their words, declared war on us. So we took out one of their leaders who already had the blood of American soldiers, hundreds of American soldiers, and thousands of other human beings on his hands. The American media and the politicians from the left, they're godless. Many of them are godless. I was reading today in Proverbs 8, Isaiah 28, the book of wisdom. Listen to these phrases as we finish out our show. Proverbs 8, Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at my doorposts. He who sins against me wrongs his own soul, and those who hate me love death. You can see that with many of the media. They hate the wisdom of God, and they love death. And they hate Donald Trump. Isaiah 28. Because you have said we have made a covenant with death, and with hell we are at agreement. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come to us. For we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood we have hid ourselves. That's what many of the American politicians are doing. They have made lies their refuge. They are in a covenant with hell. Read for yourself the book of wisdom. The ungodly by their words and deeds summon death, considering him a friend. This is what we're dealing with, the spirit of death in America, hating President Trump for defending us from a mass murderer. I'm out of time. God bless you.